Welcome officially. I want to welcome you all here to this amazing masterclass. It is such an honor to be able to bring you our guest experts today. You are here for the Stress Less, Sleep Better, and Live Happier event. This is a masterclass where I've gathered my author friends and wellness experts to help us live better, sleep better, and just thrive. And this is inspired by my new book, 365 Happy Bedtime Mantras. And you've pre-ordered the book, which is why you have access to this amazing masterclass. So this is a very exciting time, and I don't want to waste any time here at the beginning. We're going to jump right in, but we have a beautiful program today where I'm going to guide you through and bring in the experts, and each expert has a slightly different focus on wellness and mental health. We have our stress release experts, our relationship experts, and our first guest today is our anxiety relief expert. And before I bring her on, we are going to have a power-packed program today. So I invite you to set aside time for you. Get a pen and paper. You can use the activities. There's going to be some journal prompts, some meditations, different tools. The goal here is to help bring you tangible tools that you can use immediately and feel better at any point of the day. Because truly that is what this book is really about. It has 365 mantras, which means every day for the next year, you can have a mantra to help you tune into the moment, get present, practicing mindfulness. And it's a great book to have at the end of the day. It'll help you fall asleep, rest better, feel better. And what's special within the book, there's also the mantras, but there's also a meditation for each and every day. And then there are rituals. And the rituals are nightly activities that you can do. Very simple things, everything from journaling to breath work, again, to having conversations with a loved one, or simply different sleep methods on how you can sleep better using different tools like sound machines or essential oils. It's a very beautiful book, and it was such a joy to write it. I'm honored that you're here. We're going to dive right into the masterclass. And the first expert that I'm going to bring on is my dear friend and author, Amy B. Shear. She's an award-winning best-selling author of 4 different books about humaning and also healing. She is definitely a healing expert because she's had to heal herself from multiple different processes. And she even wrote a book about going to India to heal herself from Lyme disease. And her powerful transformational story really reminds all of us that healing is possible when we really prioritize it. So whether you've been diagnosed with an illness, or you're suffering from chronic pain, or you simply just want to remove stress and feel less anxiety, she's going to be able to help us today. Now, Amy's been featured in Washington Post, Cosmopolitan. She's been on Good Morning America and been featured in CNN and CBS. And she is a teacher as well. She leads healing classes online, and she helps people break through blocks. This is what's really powerful about Amy and her work. She has a special way of simplifying complex messages to help us get to the root. And so you can be your happiest and healthiest self. So before I bring Amy on, I want to share that I pull a mantra for each guest. So today, before our guests come on, and what I do is I like to just open up to a page. So the way this book works is you can certainly read one mantra a night for 365 days. And you can start tonight, or you can start January 1st. I suggest starting when you get the book, of course. But what's really special is as you're going through this book, you can flip to any page, right? And then you just open. And then that's the mantra, like, oh, I feel like I want to stop here. And then that becomes your mantra. So just now I opened up to a mantra that I'm going to pull. I call it polling or reading for Amy. So it's this mantra: my healing takes me to new places. When you go on a personal journey, and a personal growth journey, you travel to the new higher level of awareness. One of the most important tools that you can access at any point in your healing journey is critical thinking. When you are open minded and willing to look beyond what you've known in the past and what you know to be true, your entire world shifts into expansive possibilities. This requires an ability to suspend belief and your disbelief from what you've known to move past and grow, temporarily holding off on conflicting views and mental objections that are long. Just hold it long enough so you can see a new possibility or perspective take place. Healing occurs when we open ourselves up to new possibilities. So as you do this, you will feel and always feel and know when it is, you will always know when it is done from freedom that you feel within. And so the mantra and the meditation, the mantra is my healing takes me to new places. And the meditation is I live in a fluid cycle of healing and growth and evolution. I stay open-minded and I trust the journey and my journey of expansion. Now there's a restful ritual here that you can do. Head to bed a half hour earlier than you normally would tonight and sit in your bed. You can do some hand yoga, stretching and relaxing your wrists. We can do that is if you see me, hand where you push in and out, such as this. Feels really good to loosen your hands. Yeah, like this, hand yoga. Now, one of the things is I do a lot of writing. I'm a writer, right? I'm writing a lot of books. And so I will take each finger and you press it a little bit as far as you can. So you see, this is one thing. You can move it, circle each finger, hand yoga. So that's something simple we can start with. If you ever shake your hands like this, I'd like everyone to do this with me before we bring on Amy. Shake, 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 shake. Okay. And everyone hands up, 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 up. Get ready for our masterclass today. Wrap them around you like the big sun rays. Up, up, up. Again. And as you breathe out, and we'll do this one more time. Hands up. It's like you're creating and bringing more warmth, energy, and love into you. Let's get ready for the masterclass. Thanks for being here. It's time for us to dive in. Well, it is so exciting to have you here, Amy. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here with you.
Yeah, this is an exciting time. You are our first guest on the masterclass. And what's really great is we are going to dive in and just maximize our time here. So I actually just pulled a mantra for you. And here I have my book, my 365 Happy Bedtime Mantras. And I opened up to a page and I was like, what should lead Amy and I through our process? And the one I got is Mantra Night 179. My healing takes me to new places. And this is a very special mantra. In it, I pulled it. I said, that is so perfect for Amy and it represents you've been on an incredible healing journey. I've seen you constantly transform, reinvent, and spiral yourself into a whole new layer of life. I'd love to just maybe talk about what this mantra means to you and what healing represents for you.
Yeah, thank you. So, healing for me represents after a decade long chronic debilitating illness in my 20s. Healing for me really represents becoming who I really am. And I think for all of us, that the healing journey in some aspect is that healing brings to the surface so many things for us that help us move forward in the truest version of ourselves. Now, when I was in my 20s struggling with chronic pain and, nerve degeneration and all these terrible things, I didn't see it that way. It took me a while to see it that way. But I love that mantra so much because I really believe healing goes beyond and is meant to go beyond just fixing symptoms. Healing is a journey for some of us longer, takes longer than for others, but a journey where your body or your heart is calling you to something greater, is showing you a new path. And I think that the people I've worked with thousands and thousands of people now over the years since I, fully recovered myself. And I think the people who heal the best, who heal permanently, completely, who heal deep down to their core, really do the journey from the perspective of this has something to offer me. It's not trying to kill me. It's not trying to knock me off course. It's not trying to make me miserable. I'm not being punished, but what does this have to offer? And so I love that mantra so much. It is perfect.
Wow, that's such a beautiful way to talk about our healing journey. What does this have to offer? We can apply that to any aspect of our life, whether it's, whether we're grieving or, learning any obstacle in life. I think sometimes we look at these diagnoses or these different things and they set us back until we start to dive in. And that's what I've seen with you constantly. And I love in your books, you talk about how you dove into the experience. And there's something very profound about being in the experience versus trying to get to the destination. And I've seen
Yes.
you. Can you talk more to that and how you've kind of led your life in that process of being in the journey?
Yeah, thank you for saying that. It's something that I had to work really hard on because I'm a Virgo, and Virgos like to see the problem and then
Yes.
fix it systematically, checking off the boxes, doing all the things. So, in my own healing journey, which again lasted pretty much a decade, I was bedridden for some of it. I was doing all the right things. I was going to the best doctors. I was taking the supplements. I was doing the treatments, and I just wasn't getting well. And what was happening was, I wasn't getting the message of the illness. I wasn't understanding that there was more being offered to me than just let me get through this and get this over with. My ultimate goal at that time was the cure. And there's nothing wrong with wanting a cure. We all want that, whether it's from an illness, from, like you say, from grief. We always just want to feel better, and that's fine. But what I tell my clients and students now is you better use it. Use every last drop of that crisis, use every last drop of that illness
Yeah.
to actually move forward in some way. And I
Mm.
think for me, when I stopped trying to do everything perfectly to just get over it, I was able to fully experience the experience in a way where it was time for me to actually move to the other side. I was learning the lessons. I was feeling the uncomfortable feelings. I was doing the work that I was meant to do. And when you try to rush through something, you actually prolong it. We rush through because we
Yes.
want it to be over and we want to do all the right things and be done. But actually, I think I would have healed years sooner if I would have stopped in the beginning or close to the beginning and said to myself, what is this really telling me? What can I do here? How can I live with this better until it's gone? Instead, what I did was I fought every second of it. And what does that do when we fight our reality? It causes stress in the body. And
Yeah.
what contributes to illness? Stress in the body. And so I
Right.
was so counterproductive, which pains me as a Virgo that I was counterproductive and I didn't realize it. But I so often tell my students and clients now the best thing you can do when you're depressed, anxious, sick is relax into it. And I know they think I sound, like I don't know what I'm talking about. But I always say, as soon as you relax into it, you release that fight, flight, or freeze, or that stress, and you can actually move through it in a different way. And so I think that's what these crises have to offer.
Absolutely. How can I live with this better? That is a mantra within itself, and learning from it.
Yes,
And almost it becomes a relationship. You had to reframe how you were looking at yourself, your body, instead of it attacking you. It's almost like you shift to, I'm in a relationship with this now. How can I
yes,
live with it? So there's something very powerful about that lens. And it is a shift. It's a shift in perspective. What happens when, I understand and hear what you're saying, you get to the other side. Sometimes I know with clients of mine as well and readers, they start to feel a lot of shame and grief of, I wish I did this sooner, or how, because once you see it and once you learn the lesson, you can't go back. And there's this kind of overwhelm that comes over of, I wasted years. How do
yeah.
you reconcile with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those old, I hate to speak in cliches, but Shannon, writers, we do this. We write in them, we speak in them. I just think you can only do what you could do at the time. Like we all do the best that we can. And, that was something that I had to deal with was, oh my gosh, I lost so much life. I lost so many years. But then did I? Like,
Right.
I was sick in my 20s when all my friends were, meeting life partners and then getting their first big job and pursuing their career. And I was bedridden. And so for so long, I felt like all this lost life. And then I just realized I just took a different path and none of it was lost. It was all where I was supposed to be. And I think when we can align with that belief, I am where I'm supposed to be. And the next answer is always right where we are. And we can't be where we are until we're where we are. And that is just how it goes. And so I think, again, as a Virgo, I'm such a realist. And at some point, I just went, that's just how it was. It
Yes.
was that way, even if I don't totally understand it, and even if I wish it wasn't. What I didn't want to do was lose more time wishing it differently because that
Exactly.
can't change. And so I just decided, you know what, my life path was so much different than all of my friends in their late 20s. And I guess that's what it was supposed to be because anything else felt like wasting more time. And I
Yeah.
don't think any of it was wasted.
Right. It's so beautiful to share your journey specifically in the behind the scenes because I know a lot of people who are in it now. And even
Yeah.
just hearing this little tidbit of there is no time wasted ever. And one thing I'm hearing from what you're sharing is the comparison aspect of whether we're comparing to ourselves, our old self, our future self, or that person over there healed themselves much faster. Or like you said, everyone else in my 20s is doing this. Once we can
Yep.
unhook from that and really recognize that we are all on our own journey, and that's a whole chapter, and lots of mantras in this bedtime book talk about that. So there is a power. What comes up a lot of times for people is anxiety. They start to fear the future, right? Or anxiety of now what. And I'd love for you are our anxiety expert today and our healing expert, really. If you have any tips on how people can handle that anxiety that comes on their healing journey or where they are in life right now, what would you share?
Sure. So anxiety to me, and I wrote a book called How to Heal Yourself from Anxiety because this topic I think is so misunderstood. And what I believe and experience anxiety as is not an emotion and not just fear. I see anxiety as emotions that get stuffed or suppressed that are trying to bubble up and move out of our system, and we're not dealing with them. And so anxiety can be anything. It can be suppressed anger. It can be fear about the future. Like you said, Shannon, it can be anything. It is just emotional energy that's bottled up in our system. And so I created a technique called alternate temple tapping, which engages the left and right side of the brain and also your temple points, which are linked to the energy pathway in your body that governs the fight, flight, or freeze response in your body. So by tapping, simply tapping alternately on your temples, just like this, and either just feeling into your stress, letting it come up, or feeling into your emotions, or talking about them out loud. And I'll demonstrate that in a second. What we are doing is calming the fight, flight, or freeze response in relationship to those stuffed down emotions. We're also using the left right integration of the brain, similar to some other techniques, to release stress and kind of rebalance the brain and body. So, if in moments of anxiety, you can just sit there and either feel into how you're feeling and tap, and you can say releasing, 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 releasing to direct your body that it's safe to release that fight, flight, or freeze, or whatever emotions or stress you're feeling. It can make a huge impact on the body and brain. The other way you can use it is to vent out loud while you tap about what you're feeling. So it could look something like, I'm just so anxious about the future. I don't know if I'm ever going to get out of this. I just keep thinking about it. I don't know what to do. It feels so stressful. I can't relax. And then, whenever you're done kind of venting about all the things that feel like they're bottled up inside, you can just say, releasing, releasing, releasing. Again, just directing your body to release all those feelings and words, releasing, releasing, releasing. And that again is called alternate temple tapping. You can do it for 2 minutes when you're feeling really anxious, and you can repeat it as many times as you want. Easiest thing ever.
Wow, I'm doing this right here with you, and I feel so much more balanced and grounded. That is amazing. I'm
Yeah,
so thankful for that tool.
yeah, of course, resetting the
Simple.
fight, flight, or freeze. And it's so simple. I mean, I use several different techniques that I created during my own healing journey. But the problem is that when you're anxious, it's hard to remember to use them. So while I do teach more complex techniques for other things, this is one that I teach to everybody who has anxiety, stress, depression, because in those deepest, darkest moments, you can usually remember just to do this and say releasing, 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 or complain about all the things that are stuck in your body and let them release on their own. So
Yes, exactly. Now I know we are on the video masterclass, but people will be having access to the audio. So just to be clear, which fingers do they use to press their temple?
sure. So you can use your pointer, middle, and ring fingers if you want, or you can scrunch up your fingers and use all of your fingers. And you're just going to make sure you're alternately tapping left, right, left, right, left, right. I kind of use my flat fingers and just,
Yeah, that feels
tap, but I
good.
would use at least three fingers and gentle. Don't message me and say, I have bruises on my temples, Amy. What am I doing
And now I
wrong?
have a migraine.
Exactly,
No,
exactly. But
it's
super
actually
easy. You can use it anytime. It's safe for kids. You can teach it to kids. It's just a really great
beautiful.
technique.
I love this. I thanks for those actionable tools. This is
Yes.
a rather short masterclass to give us the best tools possible in the moment. And I think another tool that really helps us is oracle cards or affirmation cards. And one thing I wanted to do as we close out our session, we're already at the time for our session, is I would like to pull a mantra card for you from my deck, Happy Bedtime Mantras. So of course we have
Yay.
the book coming out, but 2 weeks after we have the affirmation deck. So I'm just going to shuffle the deck here for you, Amy. This and we have a card that pops out, and all the listeners, this is for all of us. This is beautiful. Oh, if we look at the picture here, we have two people. It's one person facing away from themselves, and he's looking up to the sky and the moon. There's lots of moons, golden moons around him, circling him into a balanced state. And we also have crystals behind him. The mantra for you is I deserve quality sleep and tranquility.
Oh, I love it. I love it. That's perfect. And that's when we heal so much, right? When we sleep, emotionally, physically, spiritually, all the things.
Yeah, that's another tool for us, right? To give yourself time to rest. I'd love to just, as
Yes.
we close out, kind of thank you for being here, but just share any final tips you have for our listeners and viewers.
Yeah. So I think that what's coming to me now intuitively is just believe in your own inner calm. Believe there is a place inside of you that you can access to help yourself feel safe. That is what I'm being called to share.
Oh, it's wonderful. Well, thank you, Amy. It's been beautiful to have you part of our
Thank you.
masterclass.
Thank you, Shannon. It's been wonderful.
Well, this is so exciting. We have our next guest coming right on, and she is our stress relief expert, and she will help us release stress. I handpicked this next guest on purpose because she really represents resiliency. I've seen her process since 2010 when she started her life coaching practice. The amount of growth, the amount of vulnerability, and the amount of expansion that she's able to share both through her coaching programs and her books. So I'd like to invite on Andrea Owen. Andrea is a world renowned powerhouse. She's really emerged in the space of trauma informed therapy, life coaching, and really self help as just a powerhouse as a life coach and a speaker. She founded her signature program in 2010, which is called Your Kick Ass Life, and it's transformed lives all around the world. And that's the name of her first book. Since then, she's gone on to write other bestsellers, and they have really helped people get out of their own way. Similar to the space in if you're feeling stuck or you're feeling a little bit trapped in life, Andrea has really a straight shooting approach to help you get unstuck, which is one of the reasons I absolutely love connecting with her. So today we're going to bring her on, and I pulled a mantra for Andrea right before I brought her on, right before we were backstage talking, and I had a mantra. I just opened up my mantra book, which you've pre-ordered, so you have access to, and you'll be able to do that. You can read the book one day at a time, or you can just open any page and get the message you need. And the one I pulled for Andrea is Night 28, and it's mantra 28, and it's page 30. I recognize my triggers and give myself grace. Let's just think about that for a moment. Imagine that being a mantra that you carry forward today. I recognize my triggers and give myself grace. I'll read the passage from the book, and then we'll bring Andrea on. Mentally strong people know how to combat negative thoughts with positive, uplifting ones. And physically strong people know how to listen to their body to provide what it needs, such as exercise, good food, and sleep. But when our emotional side experiences pain, the next steps often get clouded for us. Being emotional is often considered a weakness. We hear it so often in society. So we power through it, stuffing the pain until it has nowhere else to go. This is when exhaustion happens, overwhelm, and we start to have a hard time processing our feelings. So it is no wonder we get maxed out and we often get reactive. So work through these triggers by taking inspiration from mentally and physically strong people. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to bring Andrea in. She represents this resiliency of a strong person, both mentally and physically. So acknowledge your emotions and exercise their healthy expression. Be compassionate and patient with yourself through this process and recognize that emotional healing takes time. Trust in the strength and the grace available to you. And so there's a mantra you can repeat, which is I recognize my triggers and give myself grace. And my ability to see things clearly is my strength. I honor my emotional landscape with more love, joy, and ease. So without further ado, let's bring on Andrea. Andrea, it is so great to see you. Welcome.
Shannon, I'm so happy to be here. I'm so happy that I'm kind of bummed that we don't have more time, but I know that we're gonna pack a punch here with what we have.
And that's exactly it. I wanted to maximize our time, pack a punch, and that is sometimes what we need when we are feeling so overwhelmed and so stressed out in life. And you are our stress relief expert today. And there's good reason. Since I've met you, I have seen such a beautiful process of transformation in how you keep rolling with what life throws at you. And you've been through a lot of really hard things that no one should ever have to go through. And you've managed to kind of, it looks on the outside like skate through with peace, but I know there's been a lot of turbulence behind the scene. And so when I pulled the mantra for you today, which is I recognize my triggers and give myself grace, I'd like you to start with that and what that means for you and how you're able to really handle your triggers and learn
Mhm.
from them.
Okay. I think it's so interesting that out of 365 of your amazing mantras, that this is the one you pulled, and it tells me that the universe is at work for us yet again, that I can speak to something that I've been really cognizant lately and hopefully can help everybody that's watching this. So, triggers are one of those things where I have first and foremost learned to just recognize them quickly without allowing them to sweep me away. So I want to start there,
Mhm.
and that sometimes there's a misconception when people start to get excited and start to get their feet wet in personal growth and spirituality, that they maybe it's an unconscious belief that or a myth that they're going to have less problems and stressors and triggers in their life. And unfortunately, that's not the case.
Yeah.
What I tell people, the goal is that you shorten the gap between when you realize that something has happened and where you look for a solution or you can find peace. And so like that, our hope is that that gap gets shorter and shorter. It will never be non-existent. And maybe I should never say never. Maybe if you become a
Enlightened
Buddhist monk
Buddha.
somewhere. Yeah, totally enlightened. Yes,
Yeah.
maybe that's what it is. But for all of us mere mortals, for me, it's been about first and foremost surrendering to the fact that it is normal for me to have triggers because for a while I would judge myself. And
Yeah.
especially as someone who works in this industry, I would
Mhm.
think, haven't I already worked through this? And even for people that don't work in the industry, like maybe you've been to therapy for many years and you kind of beat yourself up that you are quote unquote find yourself here again, and how is this thing still an issue in my life, like why is
Yeah.
this coming up again, and you can feel frustration or whatever emotion it is that you don't want. So the grace first and foremost starts with just having them in the first place, and then from there I always lean into curiosity and
Yes.
just get curious about what is happening and what the reason might be. What is the connection? Where is this coming from? Not
Mhm.
so much asking me why, because that can kind of just, sorry for the groaning. That is my dog. This, I don't know if you can
Happy
hear
dogs. We love them. They're part of this
it.
stress relief
She's
process.
tired of me being on the phone.
Speaking
So
of.
it's the curiosity around it, not so much the why am I here, because that can get us into story, but just
Yeah.
what is going on that is making me feel this way. I'll give a quick example.
Mhm.
So the other day, so I'm in a newish relationship. It's been about almost 6 months now. And the other day I refer to him as Dr. Fox. That's not his real name, but we're not public yet. So anonymity reasons. Dr. Fox and I were texting, and he kind of was wrapping it up, and he texted something like, okay, I know you have to get up at 5 in the morning. I'm going to let you go. Have a good night. And it was like 7:30 or 8 o'clock. So it wasn't really late. And I had an immediate physical reaction of like, I kind of bristled, like, wait a minute, maybe I didn't want to stop talking to you. Maybe I had more things to tell you. And so anytime I bristle or have like a physiological response, I get curious because if I don't, then I'll immediately maybe want to pick a fight with him
Mm-hmm.
or can,
Yeah.
go down a spiral of why do you hate me? You know,
Yeah.
is it going to
Yeah.
break up with me? And
Yeah.
so I ended up making a connection that had to do with like my parents and being the youngest child and something that had nothing to do with him or seemingly innocuous, but it did have meaning for me. And it pointed to my childhood. So our triggers don't always point to our childhood, but they always, pretty much always point to a way, identity, if you will, where we do not want to be seen as that type of person, or we don't want to see ourselves as that type of person.
Yeah.
And so, again, just curiosity can lead to so much clarity and resolution, if you will, if that's what you want, or
Mm-hmm.
solution, or what the next best step is. It can lead to courage, but I think that if you start with curiosity, that's a good place to go.
I love how you're sharing that too, because there's a couple things in there where you talk about the story. And I think
Mhm.
so often we will run with the story in that story. Like you said, why does he hate me? Or we sometimes, the stories are what hinder us because we're projecting out our point of view. And sometimes they're doing that too. I've lost some really significant relationships because of stories. And in
Mm.
going back, you can't go back, you can't repair because we're so much in that process. And so how would you suggest someone gets out of the story or first recognize that their story might not actually be the accurate representation of what's going on?
Yeah. So many of our stories are representative of past things that have happened where we have an emotional attachment to that story. It's as if, and I'm sure that there's brain science to back this, but I'm not a brain scientist. But um, a lot of experts talk about how that emotional feeling and experience gets sort of imprinted on our mind, and that's where the story sticks. And
Yes.
so I think that anytime you can, again, you can get curious and then look at the story. It's not about beating yourself up for having had a certain thing happen to you, for the story existing in the first place. It's not about beating yourself up for reattaching to the story. It's just about noticing and so what I'll give you an example of like what curiosity and action might look like.
Super.
So if I and I'll use my same example. I got that text message from him and immediately had a weird feeling. Then I connected it to, well, I don't like being told what to do in terms of like how to take care of myself. Like I can figure out how to take care of myself. Thank you very much. So
Mm-hmm.
getting stuck in the story might pull me into past stories of my family treating me like a child, even though I'm an adult. And then I can get angry. And really, that story doesn't matter unless I'm trying to actively heal from that story. So it's like it might be doing some forgiveness work for myself for not speaking up, acknowledging
Yeah.
that I was a child and that is my family dynamic. This is my family
Right.
story. It's about giving grace to people who do the best they can with their boundaries. And sometimes that's not how I would do it. And it's just like,
Yes,
like
right.
that type of
Yeah.
work. Like that's where the story can come in handy.
Mhm.
But typically that's not what we're doing in that moment. So I hope I'm being clear on this is like the story, a lot of times, like it can be helpful too to think what beliefs about myself or the future am I attached to because of this story? And are they empowering or not? Because
Yeah,
more often than not, they're not empowering. And
exactly.
we're kind of like bracing ourselves for something to happen again. And that's where the story can kind of screw with us.
Yeah, and that's where I think the grace comes in when we're talking about our triggers, having the grace for yourself. And so, in this specific situation, did you talk to your significant
Yes.
other? And that's a key
Hmm.
part too, the communication, right? But you first had to have the communication with yourself.
Right. Well, I responded to him in an interesting way that he was emotionally mature enough to ask me. He waited until the next morning, which I'm grateful he did. And he said, "I'm not sure what to make of your text. It seems um, a little bit off from you." And then that's when I was like, you know what? He's right. What is this about? And so then I asked, I'm like, can we talk on the phone? Because I text is
Yeah.
terrible. Like, so
Yes.
if you've been
Yeah.
triggered,
Lesson learned.
don't text.
There you
You
go.
don't take
Takeaway.
anything away
Stress
from
relief
this.
tip. Don't.
Don't
Exactly.
text. Talk in person. And
Yeah.
so, and that's what
So
we
important.
did. And I was able to say, like, this is where that came from. And thank you for hearing me. And yes, it ended
Yeah.
up being a great thing.
When you talk about thank you for hearing me, I think that's really important too, is knowing what your needs are and being able to be comfortable sharing those and have someone in your space who can hear that and hold that too. I think some
Hmm.
people listening and on this master class have a hard time setting boundaries. You talked about that. So maybe he was presenting a boundary of his and you are like, that's not the way I would do it. So talk a little bit about boundaries and maybe a way to effectively understand your boundaries and communicate them and feel safe doing that.
Yeah, boundaries are such a big conversation. But if I can do the one, two, threes, I also think it's important for people to set boundaries even when it doesn't necessarily, because we don't know what the outcome is going to be. We
Mm-hmm.
have no control over how the other person is going to show up, whether they're going
Yeah.
to show up at all, how they're
Right.
going to react, if
Yeah.
they are going to adhere to our boundary, or if we're going to have another conversation about it. Like, we have zero control over that. And
Yeah.
so the only thing that we do have control of is if we're going to have the conversation at all, and how we show up
Mm-hmm.
during the conversation. So that means preparing what
Yes.
words you're going to use, preparing yourself emotionally for that.
Mm-hmm.
For some people, it might look like reading a script because you're so emotionally attached to this person and the situation. You know you're going to fall apart if you don't
Yeah.
have notes in front of you. Like, that is perfectly okay. So that is the only thing that we have control over, is of if we show up and how we show up. And
Exactly.
I want people to know that that's a win. That is
Yes.
success
Yeah.
above all else.
I
Will it
just
be great if you get your
huge
way?
goosebumps all over. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a bonus. But like, I think for so many people who are used to just avoiding
Yes.
or allowing other people to get their way and step over our boundaries, just to have the conversation can be the most courageous thing that you'll ever do.
I love that because it's so true. It's a self-love, self-care and compassionate towards yourself first and foremost. And we have to be able to give ourselves that in order to show up more fully in our relationships. And I think what's interesting in my book, there are so many mantras about relationships and how we're showing up. And I know it's a bedtime mantra book where you read them to help you sleep better, but we can't sleep well if we are literally having discord and arguments with others, or we're feeling not good about ourselves and it's affecting our relationships. And so I wanted to maybe just ask you, as we start to the final question of today, when it really comes to you in your communication with others, you've heard sayings like "don't go to bed mad" or anything like that.
Mm.
Do you and your partner have any, if you're open to sharing, or you yourself have any bedtime before bed rituals or kind of mantras or thoughts that you say in order to connect deeper with your loved one versus not going to bed and being further apart?
Yeah. I think that what I have learned now, so I'll kind of give you the quick history. So I've been married twice, and this is like my first relationship out of both of those. And I'm in my late 40s. I'm about to be 50. And so one of the things that I keep saying is I have the map of a mature relationship, a great relationship. I just haven't had anybody to go on the journey with me. And he actually said to me, isn't it usually the other way around, where like we know what the destination of is the map? It's like, being together forever, but we don't have the map. Like, we don't have the journey like laid out for us in terms of like, how do we do this relationship stuff? And so one of the things that's important to me, and I don't cohabitate with this person yet. So, with bedtime, look, we're in two separate homes, is one of the things I'm doing. This is just for me. So this is
Yeah.
for anyone, like whether you're in a relationship or not, is if I want to be that person who knows what the map looks like, and when I say like what the map looks like, it's the how I want to be the best version of myself in any relationship, friendship, romantic, whatever. If I want to be that person, it's important that I instill certain mindset patterns and routines in my mind. One of those things is especially when things feel intense around you, like what's happening in the United States right now and abroad, not just here in the US as we're recording this, but I get shaky, uneasy, panicked sometimes of like, what is the future hold? There's so much uncertainty, et cetera, et cetera. I go down those spirals as well. If it has to do with my relationships or otherwise, or work or whatever. So what I have done is I've started opening up my journal and specifically looking for all of the entries where I was just on fire, where I was writing from like that, the most wise, intuitive, like my third eye was wide open when I was writing these. And they're in there, like they're in there in these passages that I would write. And I lean into that because it's a reminder of my natural state. And we all have that. So if you don't have that journal, I encourage you to, when you have those moments of clarity and consciousness, document it, whether it's in video format or writing or making a piece of art, like whatever it is that you can look back on and remember who you are, because that will ground you and anchor you. That is something new that I've started doing.
That's beautiful. Oh, that's such a great way to wrap up our talk here. I wish we had a lot more time because this is such a rich conversation. Thank you for your wisdom. What you just shared, I'm going to pull an Oracle affirmation card for you. And it's beautiful because what you shared is what I heard too is in your journaling, the parts where you were on fire are also kind of the moments where perhaps there was uncertainty on the outside, but it channeled in a deeper part of your creative self. And I think sometimes we can look to the world and feel hopeless and it's too chaotic and we kind of shell away. But for me, those have been the most deep, rich moments of creating the most robust creative projects. That's where the books start. That's where this affirmation deck started. So I'm going to pull a card deck. So we have the book that comes out, and 3 weeks later, the affirmation deck comes out. I think it's 2 weeks later. So I'm just going to pull a card for you.
Okay.
And we'll close out. Oh, we got a flipper. We got a flipper.
Of course we did.
So I'll show you the art. It's the moon inspired, kind of like inspired by a fantasy and a dream, the moon. And your mantra as we close out, Andrea, I am decisive and in control of my circumstances.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
This deck is so good, Shannon. The last one you pulled for me was perfect too. And you texted me a picture of it and I appreciate it.
I'll send you the picture of this as well. So thanks for
Thank
being
you.
with us here today. And thanks for all your wisdom and instilling us with your gold nuggets. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye. We're moving right along in this beautiful masterclass. I have the privilege of bringing on our next guest. And if you've listened to my Awakened and Aligned podcast, you've probably heard this guest. They've been on a couple times, and it's always such a joy because they really represent light and standing in their truth and living a life of meaning and joy. So our manifestation expert is here. George Lysos is a spiritual teacher, and George is really well known in the spiritual community for his psychic healing capabilities and his different philosophies on how to manifest your ideal life. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to bring him here for our masterclass, because when we look at our life as a whole, part of living a fulfilled life is living your dreams and taking action on them. And in my book, the Happy Bedtime Mantras deck, and also the book, there's a whole section dedicated to your dreams, both your dreams at night and how they can help inform your daily life, but also the dreams you dream about and fantasize about during the day. And there's a lot around our dreams and how to make them happen. And so George is here specifically to help us tap into a deeper part of ourselves, which is allowing ourselves to manifest the life that we truly want. And George is here. I'm going to bring him on in just a second. He's also a podcaster. You may have heard his podcast, The Light Up Lightworker. He's also the podcast host of Can't Host Podcasts. So George teaches workshops and online courses all around around the world, and he's actually calling in from Cyprus. So we're going to bring him on. But right before we do, I want to share the mantra that I pulled from my book for George. Now, as you know, the book you can open to any page, and I said, what message should we lead with George? And I pulled Mantra Day 55. And this is actually page 261 in the book. And the mantra is, I am ready to receive fulfillment through my dreams. Again, this is a mantra you can write down, and this will lead the session with George. I am ready to receive fulfillment through my dreams. I'll read the passage here, and then we'll bring George here. Fulfillment comes in many different forms, and often when we are doing what we love. Remember the last time that you tapped into a skill, a talent, or hobby, and you probably lost track of time. Everything felt like it was in flow. When you do what you love, you are flooded with feel-good emotions, and your whole being feels more present. This feel-good energy comes to you because you are aligned with your interests and your values. So when you live from joy, you live a life of expansion. All of your dreams matter, and the dreams and the goals that you are working to achieve in your life, both in your waking life and the dreams that you have at night, are important. So let your dreams in the evening guide you to more clarity in your sleep state and in the waking life. You can receive fulfillment in all areas of your life. So the mini meditation, my dreams matter. They are the signature to my full potential. When I go to bed at night, I surrender, allowing my dreams in sleep to guide me in my waking life. Now, if you're looking for a rejuvenation ritual, the one in my book that I share on page 261 with the mantra, I am ready to receive fulfillment through my dreams, is to start to document the dreams you have in your journal. Make an intention tonight to remember and record your dreams in the morning. You can start doing this throughout the next couple of weeks and watch how themes start to show up in your life. It's so great to see you. Welcome, George.
Hi, Shannon. How are you?
This is special. You know, of all the people to really talk about dreams and making them come true, you were hands down. I had to bring you on for this masterclass. It's been a joy to watch you in your journey and see how you're manifesting such a fulfilling life, but also you're teaching this. And so I'd love to first ask you how your manifestation journey has changed over the years, as far as what are the biggest blocks that block people, and how did you learn to overcome those?
The biggest block for me, and I feel for many people as well, is for so many years, we've been over depending on outside in manifestation practices versus also practicing inside out manifestation practices. And I'm really rooted in the manifestation practices of the ancients. And specifically in my book, Ancient Manifestation Secrets, I talk all about that and drawing from the ancient Greek and Egyptian cultures. And what I found out is that the way the ancients were manifesting had less to do with creating vision boards and like outside in manifestation practice, in the sense that I'm going to create something external and I'm going to receive something from that. And it was more about making changes within their own energy field, making changes within themselves, and therefore allowing themselves to manifest through that. Mm-hmm. So that's one of the biggest blocks that I faced. And what I mean by these types of practices, outside in, I'm thinking about manifestation boxes or manifestation jars or vision boards, for example, versus inside out practices have to do with doing the inner work that is a manifestation practice, and positive affirmations and visualization, again, going within and using energy work, working with your energy field to manifest.
Oh, that feels so good. Even when you said that, I felt energy coming towards me in a positive light. And that's touching on the energy of manifestation. How can someone recognize when they're maybe trying to manifest something and it's not actually in alignment?
Well, that has to do with the limiting beliefs and the fears and the blocks that are present that are preventing that from manifesting. But also, it has to do with factors outside of ourselves. You know, in the spiritual community, we talk about the law of attraction. The ancients referred to it mostly as the law of vibration, the idea that our thoughts and our emotions manifest. But it's not just the law of attraction that manifests. There are other factors as well. The ancient Hermetics taught about the law of cause and effect. essentially karma, the idea that there are many causes resulting to an effect and therefore a manifestation. Some of these causes are our thoughts, our emotions, our vibrational frequency. There are other causes as well: karmic contracts, relationship contracts, collective intentionality, what our pre-birth plan, what our soul chose to do in this lifetime in order to evolve. So there is a timing component to everything. And there's also certain things that were not meant to manifest because they go completely against our soul plan and our life purpose, etc. So when we tap into that and we realize, okay, here's my Akashic records, for example, here's my soul plan, then I know how to focus my attention on the desires that are meant to manifest so I can manifest them faster. And if I have fears and limiting beliefs, then I can use different practices to release them and really move forward.
Oh, it feels so good to hear that because it really shows the power of the inner work and how shifting those beliefs or hidden shadows that hold us back, we can shift. Even just a perspective shift can help us be in more alignment to the flow of the manifestation that we're trying to make come true. That's what I hear from what you're saying.
100%, yes. And when you talk a lot in your new creation about dreams,
Yeah.
and I was thinking about like how can we use dreams for manifestation? And it's all about that. Dreams, they do so many things, but one of the ways that I've used them through the years is they reveal to us what's hidden, what needs to be released, what's suppressed, what
Yeah.
is begging to come to the surface.
Whew, that feels amazing to hear. And I wanted to touch on dreams because I think we can really use dreams in the state of our life, especially when we feel like we are in transition or we're really trying to make something happen that maybe isn't coming as fast as we want. We can start to pay attention to our dreams and what reoccurring patterns have happened. So, just for example, I've recently relocated. I've moved. I'm in a whole new environment, making new friends, which is wonderful, new climate. And I keep having these dreams about birds. And last night, even right before our session here, it was this bird that I was holding and really recognizing I was holding a bird and it was so clear. And I've never in my life remembered a dream where I'm holding a bird and it was just birds everywhere. Well, come to find out, birds are freedom. Birds are accepting the next level of your life. Birds have a bird's eye view. And so they can see things from a new perspective, but also welcoming in new possibilities is what that really represents. So we can start to pay attention to our dreams and really allow them to inform our waking life. And I was wondering if you have any exercises on maybe manifesting or working with our own dreams that you'd like to share with everyone.
Yes, please. I love working with dreams. And when I was first starting out with my spiritual path, when I was a teenager at the time, I started with like dream interpretation among a few other modalities. So I kept a dream diary. So that is a practice that I would recommend everyone that has. A dream diary is basically a diary that you have next to your bed. And the idea is to make note of your dreams as soon as you wake up. Now, as soon as we wake up, our bodies programmed to forget our dreams. So there are certain hacks that we can use to remember our dreams. First hack is to not move our bodies. Because as soon as we start moving our body, that sends a message to the brain, okay, you're waking up. Let me forget the dreams. But we can trick our mind a little bit for quite some time to stay within the dream state. So we can stay still, trick our body that we're still in the sleep paralysis mode, and then catch an emotion or a symbol from the latest dream that you've had. And likely there will be an emotion or there will be like an image. And then you start from that emotion or from that image, you focus on it. And then the longer you keep focusing on it, the more you'll start getting details about the dream. And then once you have as many details as possible, you get your dream diary or dream journal and you start writing that down. And then you start seeing signs in those journals. Now, how does manifestation come into this? I see manifestation from a holistic perspective. It's not just about using manifestation practices to actively manifest, but also removing the blocks that are preventing from the manifestations from showing up and therefore doing the inner work. So I like to use dreams to see what's there. What is my subconscious telling me? What are those symbols, such as the bird, for example? And I don't believe in dream dictionaries because I believe that symbolism is personal. yes, certain symbols are universal. Like birds, for example, could be freedom for many people, but people who have ornithophobia, it's definitely not freedom, it's constriction or something else. So it's important to recognize what each symbol means to us and
Mhm.
interpret dreams with the emotions that they came with and with our own personal symbolism to identify what's there so we can do the work, release those blocks, and manifest our desires.
Ah, I love this because it's about making it your own. And that is what is key to all of these tips that we're sharing in the masterclass. That's what, even with the rituals within the book, making it your own. I was, working with a trauma therapist at one point, and she asked me to get a dream journal. That was part of our process together. And, there was different ways. And the first thing she said is recognize when you have a dream and you remember a specific symbol, same thing as what you're saying. What does it mean to you? And so, for example, I dream about my dog all the time. He's always in there. And it's not really about my dog. What it is my inner protector. He does
Mm.
protect me, but my dog isn't my dog outside of me. It is the part of me that needs boundaries, the part of me that needs to stand up for myself. And I think if we all apply more of ourselves to this, we will start to see how it can really inform our waking life. To your point, they're not separate. And I think that's the key takeaway for today, right? The key takeaway.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, 100%. Our dreams are powerful.
It's so amazing. I'm wondering if you can share as we start to close out our masterclass. We have just a couple more minutes with you. It just flies by today. If you can share how ego gets in the way of our dreams.
Ooh, yes. Well, what is the ego? The ego is that part of ourselves that is human, the personality, our thoughts. And the ego sees itself separate from our true nature, the divine. So it wants to protect us from like outside danger. So the ego will, whenever it identifies something that's different, something that's new, something that it hasn't known before, it's gonna freak out and sabotage the whole process. So I like firstly to become friends with the ego and understand that it's okay to have an ego. Our ego can become our tool. Like me showing up right now and wearing what I'm wearing, I'm using my ego to convey something with my colors that I'm wearing, for example. With the branding, it's all about using our ego. So ego can be a tool to teach a message of love. So when we recognize our ego and we appreciate our ego and we recognize it as a tool and we make peace with it, then it calms down a little bit and it gets more comfortable, allowing us to take risks. And especially when it comes to manifestation, we can take little risks, little steps forward. One of my books that I wrote in the past was called Lightworkers Gotta Work, because I saw so many light workers not working their life purpose. They were just like, oh, I'm just going to sit there and raise my vibration and I'm manifesting. No, you're not. You need to get out there and show up for you, for the universe to show up for you. That is part of the manifestation process. But the ego is afraid to do that. So when we take little steps forward, small steps forward outside of our comfort zone towards our manifestations and our desires, we train our ego to feel safe. Yes. And then the ego gets more comfortable with us taking risks. And then we can take bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger risks. Mm-hmm. I don't like when I hear coaches saying, take massive action towards your purpose. I'm like, people may not be ready to take massive action. It's okay. Mm-hmm. Consistent action is what's important.
And I think to that point, to not look outside and see if somebody is taking massive action, that has nothing to do with you and your journey. You have to be where you are. That's a key thing. So thanks for sharing that. I love that. Being safe and allowing your ego to be part of the process is actually something so important for all of us. And that leads us to our mantra. I pulled a mantra for you from the book, and the mantra is Night 255. I am ready to receive fulfillment through my dreams. What does that mean for you?
Well, fulfillment, that word, I love that word. It's one of my favorite words, actually, because it's not just about experiencing solely something positive. It's about experiencing everything, the fullness of being human. Because I think it's important to allow ourselves to be human in all its forms, with the good and the bad, with positive emotions and experiences and negative ones, because they have something to teach us and they allow us to grow. They can redirect us to different directions. So when I hear about finding fulfillment through dreams, it's like accepting both positive and negative dreams, nightmares and really positive dreams and sex dreams, because we realize what our body needs, what our energy needs right now. It is energy, like manifesting through our inner world. And we can utilize those dreams to create a fulfilling life.
Yes.
Because the universe, our subconscious mind, is constantly communicating with us through those dreams. And we can take those experiences, analyze them, do something with them. And then we can, through both the good and the bad, create a more fulfilling life. That's not solely positive or full of just our manifestations, but it has everything, because it's okay to experience the whole spectrum of human emotions.
Yes, that's exactly it. It's the all. And I love how you brought in nightmares, because nightmares are just as important. And it's the same as our waking life. The low points, the dark night of the soul, the ego deaths are just as monumental as the times we're flying really high. So it's been such a beautiful opportunity to have you here. The final thing that I'm going to do as we close out is pull an actual oracle card for you from the deck. And so, as you know, the deck comes out 2 weeks after the book, and all I'm going to do is shuffle. So, George, do you have a question you want to ask, or would you like just to see what message it has?
I have a question. No, let's just keep it open.
Okay, it's open, and we got a flipper.
Yay, I have my favorite one.
That's the mic falls. So I'm going to show you the beautiful, so it's a moon. And the way I designed this is I actually wanted it to feel like a dream state. These came to me when I was in shamanic journeys as well. And I started to design it with my signature bold colors, but you see the certain flowers in there. So there's certain alignments. One thing you can notice with this particular oracle affirmation is the alignment of the solid light centered through the whole entire thing. So that's a subtle way of us aligning our chakras as well. And your mantra, George, it's mantra from the deck 38 from the affirmation deck is, I release the need to control others' experiences through people-pleasing tendencies.
I need this right now.
Yeah. And so I'll send this to you after. And I think we all need it. We all need it, right? Let's just allow ourselves to get back to us and our dreams. And any closing thoughts for everyone on the masterclass as we close out for you?
Yeah, set an intention before you go to sleep. I think that's really important, because you take that intention into your dreams. And that's a beautiful way to actively manifest, and then therefore manifest through your dream state.
Yes, that's beautiful. So let's all set the intention. And thank you so much for being here with us, George. Wonderful advice, and have a great time manifesting your dream life.
Thank you so much for having me, and congratulations.
Thank you. What an honor it is to have our next guest come into this experience. When I was manifesting and thinking about this masterclass, I really wanted to get a collective of people from all different aspects and areas. And this next guest is our spirituality expert. She's also a dear friend of mine, and I love it when we have our phone calls. I always feel so much more charged up and balanced, and a true soul sister supporting each other on our mission. And that's what we all want, is to have a supportive group of people who lift us up. And this whole entire masterclass is designed for us to be in your back pocket. And for us, I've gathered my friends and my family, they feel like family, people in the mental health wellness space, to help you feel better from the inside out, so you can truly live the life that you are made for, and you can rest better, stress less, and of course, sleep better for a happier life. Now, Amy has been in the business for a very long time, and she is a holistic health expert and a medical intuitive. And I've had sessions with her, and the way she's able to diagnose, and not specifically diagnose like a doctor, but the spiritual aspect of reading energy, and through the shamanic work that I've done with her, she's a trained shaman. She's able to bring in like mind, body, spirit into the readings, and she's profound process that she shares. And she's just gifted at doing this. She was born really high vibrational in this space. And so what we're going to talk to today is about how we can heal ourselves with kind of vibrational tools and understanding the power of our thoughts. Now, Amy is the author of 16 books, and I want to say more because she's actually has some that are going to be coming out in the next couple years. And she has written books that you may have seen in gift shops or even in airports, a little bit of meditation, a little bit of mindfulness. And her work has been featured in magazines all across the globe, including Glamour, Women's Health. She's also been in Shape magazine, Mind Body Green, the Oprah magazine, First for Women, and it goes on and on. She is really a TV personality. She has a lot of different segments where she comes in and talks about different holistic healing opportunities. So before I bring Amy in, I want to share the mantra that I just pulled for Amy. And it's perfect because it really sets us up for our process today. Now, it's funny because there are no mistakes. When you open the book, you can get any mantra that is right for you in the moment. And I knew that we were bringing Amy in, and what I wanted to do is just align with the message that could lead us into our talk. And so I pulled Night 321. So it's mantra 321, and it's page 327 for when you get the book. The mantra is, I am a powerful creator of positive experiences. The mantra again, I am a powerful creator of positive experiences. Feeling down and out, well, maybe you can turn that frown completely around. There are many tricks to help you find your happy. You've probably heard of them, such as the value of journaling, getting more sleep, exercising, eating a healthy diet, and even focusing on gratitude. And of course, thinking positively. But unless you are an internal optimist and thinking positive, it doesn't always feel like it's working. And it's not always realistic. So your brain doesn't know the difference between what is fantasy and what, for example, if you win the lottery, it doesn't know if you really won the lottery until you start to think, wow, I can't even pay my next bill. So the cognitive dissonance is very real. There's a huge gap between what you want and what could be or what actually is. And that's where the cognitive dissonance can actually slow us down. So when you focus on positive thinking, always remember to pair it with inspired action. Take action that is inspired from that vision, and you'll actually reach your heart's desires much faster. And the mantra and the meditation you can say is, I am happy when I have and make positivity a choice. I make a habit of positive thinking, and I focus on what I can control. I am thankful for all my experiences, and I dive into them fully. There's a rejuvenation ritual in this mantra that you can do, but Amy's going to bring in a lot more guidance here. So before bed, jot down in your journal your day's awesome moments. Collect them and start to list them out, no matter how big and small. Yes, this is so exciting to have this special opportunity for people who pre-order 365 Happy Bedtime Mantras. When I was thinking about this event, I knew I had to have you here, in part because we're such good friends, but the wisdom that you're able to instill and really pinpoint to help people. And we'll just dive right in because it really does help to have a mantra to signify kind of where we can go. And I just mantra for you. And this mantra is so exciting. It is, I am a powerful creator of positive experiences. And so I just want to start there. That's a mantra for you, Amy. And I also felt like that's such a representation of your teaching as well. Even though I have this mantra in my book, I would love to start there about how important is positive thinking in our own wellness healing journey.
I love that question because we ask it in all these different ways in spiritual circles and in the spirituality genre. And there's a lot of different wonderful answers. The way I look at it is that our thoughts are actually the result of the movement of photons, which are subatomic particles in our brains and our body, and specifically in our brains. Photons are light, they're electricity, they're, what powers our body. And also when we think, these photons are moving through the cells of the brain, the body. Like as I'm gesturing, I'm a gesturer. So I'm thinking and the photons are going at light speed to my hands and moving them. So those photons are charged with the flavor of our thought. They are our thoughts. So our consciousness and our intention meet these photons. Photons are electromagnetic force, and they are what comprises electromagnetic fields, including our aura, as well, which is just the biological field generated by our body. So these photons are charged with whatever we choose to program them with. So if we use positive thought, positive intention, things like I feel great all of the time, I experience so much joy, gratitude, and appreciation every moment of the day because my life is so fantastic, then we are charged with that. Our body, our aura, and everything that is pictured outside of that into our life is charged with that frequency, and then we have that experience.
That's so powerful, and I've seen that firsthand in my own life. I know I've
Me
spoken to
too.
you throughout my health journey, and so
Yes.
can you share a little bit as a medical intuitive how you're able to relate with clients in that space? Do you
Yes.
see the photons, or what is your experience of
I
helping
do.
clients?
Yeah, I've honed the skill through shamanic techniques and my whole atomic healing method, how to really drill down and find the root cause of imbalance in the body. Sometimes it is seeing those photons, those subatomic particles, seeing, like, for example, the way that they are or not infusing a certain cell or a cell membrane or what's happening. And to kind of bring it back to our mantra, for the tangibility factor for all of us, is if we do choose to charge our thoughts and our field and our body with a conscious intention, we can affect all of those cells, all of those organs, and our experience of life. So I
Absolutely.
always like to say, like, we are human projectors. So what we're thinking, feeling is projecting out through the lens of which we can keep nice and clean and exponentialize things with it, and then out into our external reality, creating our lives. So, from a medical intuitive perspective, if we choose a focus, like, for example, joy, which is the highest vibration in the known universe, we could infuse our cells with that using
Mhm.
conscious intention.
And so essentially, people have the power to heal
Yes,
and transform with
yes,
this process, it sounds like. And I've seen it
yeah,
firsthand as well. So if somebody is feeling overwhelmed, stuck
yeah,
in stress, or feeling chronic pain as they go to bed tonight,
yes,
what would be a practice, or how could they kind of apply
yeah.
this to their life to start to see shifts?
So I like to take for the practice which we hear about in yoga nidra and different circles called rotation of consciousness and combine that with conscious intentional thought and affirmations. So I would choose an affirmative word. You might just choose joy. You could choose golden light. You could choose joyful wealth. You could choose bliss. You could choose peace. If you're wanting to sleep and you're feeling stress or anxiety, you might choose peace or calm. Relaxation. Bliss is a great one because it's not, joy is great for healing pain. Bliss is good for like healing pain but being sleepy because it's a little bit more chill. So
Hmm.
we would use rotation of consciousness by beginning to, and everybody can do this with us now, just
Hmm.
bring your attention to the center of your forehead and repeat your mantra of choice. We're going to use bliss. So you would say to yourself, bliss, and you would feel the energy, the word bliss expand through that place. And then you could bring your attention down to the center of your throat and say bliss and feel that. And notice, what does bliss feel like? What does it maybe look like? From a color perspective, I actually do see bliss in very pastels. I happen to have been guided to wear this shirt.
It's beautiful.
Then you bring your attention down to the center of your chest and repeat that mantra, bliss. And
Mm.
you might repeat it faster internally, like bliss, bliss, bliss. Then you bring it down to the navel, right where your belly button is, repeating the word bliss. Then down to the base of your spine, bliss. And then back up to your navel, bliss. Back up to the center of your chest, bliss. Back up to your throat, bliss. Back up to the center of your forehead, bliss. And so you've infused the body and you're repeating the word bliss, bliss. You could try joy now, like just repeat joy in the center of your chest, joy, 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 joy. That really raises your frequency. So that's
Yes.
and you can do rotation of consciousness however you want. So you could really do like the whole top of the head, this next layer of the head, the next layer of the head, the whole shoulders. Like you can do your whole upper arm, your whole elbow. You can encompass your whole body. We just did
Yeah.
like a quick version of it. But
Hmm.
taking a conscious intention like that and then infusing it and then picturing it too. So you could do golden light and you're picturing golden light moving through the whole love, golden love light moving through every facet of the body. You're using these actual thoughts, which are the movement of photons. You're directing your attention there. You're bringing that energy, that flavor, that electromagnetic field and force to all of these areas.
It's so beautiful too, because it makes me think of a recent experience that I went through where I recognized I was attracting a lot of very judgmental people and friends. And I
Yeah.
was confused and I had to ask myself, well, wait a second, why am I feeling so dismissed and judged by these people? And I was going around judging myself. And I switched that.
Mm-hmm.
I started to really consciously catch,
Yeah.
well, how many times a day do I negate myself? And
Yeah.
it's switched on a dime. Literally overnight, I was able to, anytime I would maybe catch myself starting to go down that
Yes.
track, I neutralized it first because it was pretty hard to go to, I'm the most awesome person on the planet, or, switch from being in
Yeah.
such a critical state to opposite. So I went
Yeah.
to a neutral place and I said, no judgment, no judgment. And
Good.
I was still saying no, but to me, that allowed me to neutralize it. And then from
Yeah.
that place, I was able to call in the higher
Put something
vibrational
else.
alignment. And so I can testify this works amazing. And
Yeah.
hopefully, I started to attract more positive, loving people into my life
Yeah.
and friendships that are really rewarding. So thanks for that, because I think we can apply it to any area of
We
our life.
can. We
Now,
can.
one thing I'm thinking of, if somebody is, in my book, the 365 Happy Bedtime Mantras, there are a lot of different mantras for different areas. Yes, they're mantras we can say before we go to bed to help us sleep better. But if you're stressing out in your day
Yeah.
about a situation, it's impossible to shift and just focus on something else. So,
Mm-hmm.
for example, if somebody is suffering from chronic pain or they've just been
Yeah.
diagnosed with something or they're caretaking for
Yeah.
aging parents and
Mm-hmm.
it's taking their bandwidth, could they apply this and send it instead of
Yes.
starting at the top, they go straight to that chronic pain point?
Absolutely.
Works just as well.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yep. Absolutely. You can just do that one spot and
Mhm.
if it's a pain thing, I would recommend joy
Yep.
because that is a high, high vibrational energy. And as a medical intuitive for 24, almost 25 years,
Mm.
we use the power of joy to neutralize pain. And the other
Yes.
thing we use to neutralize pain is pleasure. So I also suggest making a list of what I call for me peak pleasurable experiences. So
Mm.
that might be like walking in nature with bare feet, hearing the sound of a bird flap its wings. Like there's things that really bring you pleasure. Obviously, I'm a nature person. So
Yeah.
you make that list. Going to hot springs, swimming in warm water, taking an Epsom salt bath, whatever. If you make a list of those things and then you make a commitment to have daily peak pleasurable experiences,
Yeah. I love
that's the pleasure is the opposite of pain, and you're infusing yourself with joy. And you use an affirmative statement like, I'm so grateful that I feel wonderful all the time. I feel great in each moment. I'm infused with joy, pleasure, ease, comfort, and I really
Yes.
appreciate how great I feel. What a gift. You
Yes,
know,
what a gift.
statements like that.
I love this too. And I think sometimes when we're still operating from a lower consciousness or a place that's very unhealed, we'll turn to quick pleasures that maybe are
Mhm.
not as healthy.
Right.
And when you start to do what I'm hearing from this is,
Yeah.
an Epsom magnesium bath is
Yeah.
very healing for the body.
Yeah.
Nature is
Yeah.
very,
Yes.
very, when,
Holistic peak pleasurable
yes.
experience.
So we're talking, I think it's important to recognize because I think
Uh-huh.
sometimes we will lean into old addictions or habits. And
Yeah.
what we're talking about here is allowing yourself to vibrate higher. Give yourself
Yeah.
permission to take care of
Yes.
yourself,
Yes.
self-love, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, and savoring the pleasure, noticing,
Yes.
wow, I really love the feeling of the soil under my feet or the grass. I
Yeah.
really loved hearing as that bird flew over, I
Mhm.
could hear its wings flap. That is like a big one for me. I love that.
That's beautiful because
Yeah.
I love hearing the birds sing. So for me, when I
Me
do my
too.
nature walks,
That
it's
too.
it's so beautiful and such
It
a
is.
hearing them talk to each other. So this is
Yeah.
wonderful. These are great actionable tips that we can use really immediately to allow us to feel
Yeah.
better. I think another thing that really kind of prevents people from feeling bliss or even feeling more
Hmm.
content is timing of
Yeah.
how things unfold. Sometimes we
Mhm.
really want something, whether it's to be
Yes.
fixed, healed, to find that
Right.
soulmate relationship, to get that book deal, whatever it may be. And
Mhm.
because it's not here, this
Yeah.
pressure takes over, takes a toll, can cause us a lot of anxiety, depression, even. I want to talk to you specifically because I know behind the scenes of some of your projects, and we've been
Yes.
talking many years as friends on trusting the timing. And I would love to hear a little bit more about, the timing in your life and how that's played out and how you had insights several years, decades ago about something.
Decades.
So if you're open to sharing that, I think it
I'd
could
love
help a lot
to.
of listeners.
I'd love to share. In 2001, I was guided to begin channeling a project that was a complete system of healing based on the periodic table of elements, because I'm kind of a science person. And so it took me 6 years to channel that. It became a 111,000 word book and a deck of cards that I drew. I was shown in 2005, so 20 years ago, that it would be published by Hay House and be all over the world. And I actually saw the locations like South Africa, Australia, the UK, and India. So I saw the locations and I saw that it would be published by Hay House. So then I set about trying to get a literary agent, which took me 6 years. And then we pitched that deck, but I had never published a book. So it didn't get picked up.
I just want to pause for a moment real quick because 6 years to get a literary agent,
Yeah.
that's amazing. It also shows the power of timing and how you didn't give up on yourself. I know a lot of people listening would be like, well, I guess it's not meant to be. I'm going a different direction, but you held in there. So
I
I want
never
to say
stopped.
thank you for going for that. I think we can
Thank you.
all really believe in ourselves and keep going.
We have to. You must, and I'm saying this to all of our listeners and viewers, you must bet on yourself.
Yeah.
If you have a dream, if you have a goal, you have to persevere.
Yeah.
Hopefully, you don't have to persevere as long as I did because there's more to the story.
Yep. Keep going.
Um, but you have to persevere. So,
Yes.
uh, fast forward 20 years, I got to the point where I'd written 17 books. The 18th was Aura Alchemy, which came out with Hay House. And then Hay House did pick up what has become the Atomic Element Healing Oracle.
Amazing.
And I did draw art, but it was much better. Katja Perez, who's a fantastic artist, did all
Yes.
this art for it.
And this
This is
comes
a
out in
pre-copy. This
May.
comes out May 27th, 2025.
Yeah.
This
Amazing.
is a channeled project of my heart. I also had to cut that 111,000 book down to 20,000 words, which is customary for decks like
For the
this.
card. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's really special though is you had this vision. Was there a moment in your journey where it was like you tried pitching maybe to Hay House earlier and it didn't go
Yeah.
through?
They
What were your
said,
thoughts? What happened for you there?
they said, this is really interesting, but we don't do card decks for first-time authors.
Hmm.
So I said, well, I guess I need to become not a first-time author.
Yeah, and 17 books later, right?
17 books later.
What's really special though is you are with Hay House, and right before we jumped on and we were talking just as friends, and you were saying how great it is to be with a publisher who you get to have control and over this
Yeah.
is your
A
baby,
lot of
and
input.
they're not changing
Yeah.
it. They're allowing you to have this input as the
Yeah.
author. And I think
Yeah.
sometimes we hear different stories in the industry, and what's special is you stayed and kept with the integrity of the project, but you also
Yeah.
saw it intuitively. I think some of us have intuitive hits, and
Yeah.
we don't allow ourselves to go for it. So what I'm hearing is keep going, but
Yeah.
anybody who maybe is just at that point where they're getting rejected the first time, or they're wondering, is this
Don't stop.
direction?
Yeah.
It's about timing, right? Do you see now how the
It
timing is
is.
better for you?
I didn't know it was going to take 20 years.
Yeah.
I mean, I was pretty disappointed. I was like, well, maybe it's supposed to get me on this path. And I sort of had a secret thing in the back of my head, like maybe if I get enough success as an author, I can get some publisher to publish this thing, you
Mhm.
know?
Yeah.
But I do see now I needed the experience, the experience marketing books,
Right.
writing successful books. I needed to have created my atomic healing method, which is a medical intuitive certification that I now teach. Like things that came out of what this began it.
Yeah.
It's the right timing for this to come out. Also, we're ready. I mean, think about 20 years ago, how many people were talking about healing?
Right.
Now
Yeah.
it's like completely mainstream. So I can share these to a much larger audience. And that was what my guide showed, was these cards and these books, this project all over the world. For
Beautiful.
that to happen. And in those locations, by the way, where now those are the locations I listed, those geographic locations where Hay House has divisions and offices.
Yeah, there. It's perfect.
Exactly.
And this is
It
so
showed me
great.
those exact things. And they didn't even have that back then. I didn't even understand what it meant.
I think it's also a power to our intuition. All of us have this superpower, really. You're obviously very clued in, but I think some of us we click it off and negate it.
Mm-hmm.
We say it's not happening, so that must have been a fluke. But really, no, it's actually listening to that inner
Everybody
voice.
has it.
Yeah. Whether
Everybody
you
has it.
see it, you hear it, or you
Yep.
feel it, it's a very
You know
visible
it.
experience, and you know.
Yeah.
And so I love the power of your.
Everybody has it.
Well, this is so beautiful. We have just a couple minutes left in our
Okay.
class, and I would love for you to actually pull a card from your
I'd
deck for
love
us.
to pull a card from my
Yes.
deck.
And
That is
speaking
like,
of, that was so
this
great.
is the first time, folks,
Everyone,
that
this is
this
the first
is
time.
happening. This is the day. I haven't even done one of these. Well, this jumped out. So I guess that's what
We
we're
got a
doing.
jumper, and I share the jumpers are meant for us. So great.
Erbium, Innocent Trust. I
I
am
see
going
the
to
dolphin. That's
find
such a
it.
great animal.
Yeah.
The dolphin and the beautiful purple. That's so beautiful.
I'm going to read this to you guys. I got to
Great.
find it. This
So
is the
Amy's looking
first
in the
time
guidebook now. This is great, and
I've
it's
done
so
this.
special. Okay, we're ready.
All right. Erbium, Innocent Trust. Atomic symbol is ER. Atomic number is 68. The elemental archetype. The curious mind trusts life and dances forward with a whimsical joy to see the next surprise. You've chosen this card to open to the possibility that everyone on this planet deep down wants to be happy and at peace, just like you. Life can be an adventure. In nature, rose-colored erbium salts are present in rare earth elements. Imagine sparkling pale pink glasses through which you can see the unlimited goodness in the world. The ultimate rose-colored glasses. All of the erbium in the universe is part of the being erbium's body. This being is also incarnated as the Greek goddess Eleuthera, who stewards freedom. She brings boundless, open authenticity. She's also personified by a group consciousness called the Eleutherium, who I've met during shamanic journeys and who I've channeled for years. The Eleutherium are energetically connected to some Atlantic spotted dolphins. Their one voice and heart radiating bliss. The vibrational healing message. There are beaches in the Bahamas made of pink sand colored by shells and coral. Some are on the island of Eleuthera. Feel yourself there. Experience rays of innocent trust sweeping over you like the gentlest breeze. Sense the internal pressure of your body relaxing and feel this pressure change inside your ears. You can hear it. Imagine and hear the almost inaudible sound. It's calming. Feel the softest pink sand glistening and flowing all around you, gently making contact with your body. Imagine pink, iridescent ribbons of light flowing around you and flying slowly and ever so gently through you. Receive a strand of holographic, multidimensional DNA made of iridescent, luminous light. Feel it spiral into the top of your head and move through you. Laugh in merriment and innocent enjoyment. Feel the flavor of power that is synonymous with laughter. The energetic healing properties are pure heart, wonderment, and relaxed bliss. Dietary sources, none needed. The mantra is innocent trust flows through me, providing an endless reservoir of good feelings and benevolence.
So beautiful. And that's something we can do before bed as we're laying down in
I
bed.
was thinking it's like a perfect bedtime energy, and it goes
Yeah.
great with Shannon's incredible card deck and incredible book.
Yeah, it's such an honor. It's so great. I'm going to leave people with that good feeling energy. That was such a
Yeah.
great meditation to leave us in. So thank you,
Yeah.
Amy, for coming today and being part of the masterclass.
Thank you so much for having me. It's so great to meet everybody, new friends, old friends, and my wonderful soul friend, Shannon, of course. Mwah.
We're going to bring on our next guest, and this guest was hand selected, especially with her work in relationships and how we can help heal our wounded inner child and how that affects our relationships. Jessica Baum is a best-selling author of the book Anxiously Attached. If you've read the book, then you understand it's all about becoming more secure in your life and in love. It's gone on to be a wildly successful book, a bestseller. It's just been, I think, re-released into paperback and translated into several different languages. Now, Jessica is a therapist, and she's the founder of the Relationship Institute of Palm Beach. She provides couples therapy, family counseling, and addiction therapy in South Florida. She has a lot of online presence as well, both through her social media accounts, where she's posting relevant information to help you connect to your true self so you can feel more secure both in your body and then extend that out into the relationships that you have. And she's helped thousands of clients with her unique approach to healing. It's called the Self-Full Method. And we're going to talk a little bit about that today. What does that mean? And as you're going in your journey, start to realize that your relationships impact everything. So Jessica's here today. And before we bring her on, I want to share the mantra that I pulled for her in the book. My book, of course, has lots of different mantras, and you just never know what you're going to get. But the one was so specific and important. I pulled Night 88. Now, when you have the book, you'll know that this is a powerful mantra. And the mantra itself is, I release my grief and learn the lessons in love. Whether you're healing from a recent life change, a breakup, a job loss, or a betrayal, acknowledging your grief is essential. Everyone experiences loss in their own way, and mourning is an important part of the process. Healing does take time, months, even years, but for some people, prolonged grief can actually take its toll. And again, I'm reading the mantra here that is in the book, and then that will lead us into our session with Jessica. When we grieve, we're learning the lessons associated with giving of our heart, and this is actually true love. We are here on earth to learn lessons in love, even if it is through loss. If you are grieving or ruminating or having a hard time getting past or over a situation that feels like loss, recognize there is a power in the process. Studies show that failure to reconcile conflict can actually cause prolonged grief. So if there's any conflicts that you feel or any unresolved issues that are affecting your mental health or your healing, look at it as an opportunity to see that grief too is a means of learning and evolving and learning how to let go with love. I release grief, or the mantra that is, I can read for you is, I realize grief is a form of learning and I give the process the time that it needs. I don't have any regrets. Now, the relaxation ritual that you can do that's inspired on this mantra page, commune with your ancestors this week by prepping one of your favorite meals. Make a list and you can plan in your journal before bed what you want to create. Consider inviting a guest to share this honor through a loved one that has passed on. Allow yourself to grieve the process and celebrate the joy in the journey. Of all the people, I had to bring you on. You are such a dear friend and coach, therapist to people, but you also really help people navigate their relationships and understand really how they can carve out and create healthier relationships, both with themselves and with loved ones in their life. So it's an honor to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to dive into really maximize our time together today. And I really want to start with the mantra that I pulled for you. I opened the book to any page. Of course, you can go one page at a time, but the mantra that I pulled, I thought was so special because you're our relationship coach today. And it's really important to think about relationships in different layers. We have relationships with ourselves, with others, with all of life, really. But this one was night 88. And it's I release my grief and learn the lessons in love. I want to just start there and talk about how sometimes life does present our biggest lessons and how you can help people navigate their lessons in love.
Yeah, I think that, when you're leaving a relationship or, navigating a relationship that you might need to leave, there's always grief. And grief is in so many layers and different for so many people in terms of how they manage exiting a relationship. For anxiously attached people, it can take a little bit longer because we tend to lose ourselves a little bit more in the relationship. But grief is such a beautiful thing. And I love how you're saying release the grief. It's leaning into the grief, it's asking for support in the grief. And the process of grief for me is a very spiritual process because you're just kind of letting that kind of move through you. And the more you move through you, the more I find that I'm more grounded and I'm more present. So I love that mantra.
Yeah, it's special that I pulled it for you too, because I know in your practice, you work with people in all phases of their relationship. And sometimes we have to grieve the loss of the life we thought we were going to live with a loved one. And I think talking about that, it's important to recognize how our attachment styles play into the types of people we attract. So, how important is it to understand attachment styles? And when you talk about anxious attachment, I know a lot of people are very familiar, but some people listening might not be. So, how important is it to understand that and where they come from?
I mean, I think it's very important. So I study this. So I think understanding your attachment patterns, and I would say that we have more than one, and I talk about this in my next book, but understanding your patterns and how your patterns are combined in relationship with another person's patterns can give you a lot of information. And if you have more anxious tendencies or more avoidant tendencies, you can kind of start to look at that and dive deep into where your abandonment wound is and how you're trying to navigate that and keep yourself in an illusion of safety. And I think understanding your attachment patterns is like the key to understanding where your work is and essentially where you can become more free by doing that inner work.
I could not agree more. That is so important to recognize. I feel like we have to start there as the foundation. I remember you and I were talking several years ago before your book, Anxiously Attached, even came out, and you shared with me the title. And I had not heard of the concept before. And I was surprised because I realized, oh my gosh, like I cycle in and out of anxiously attached. And I think a lot of us, yes, it's a psychology term. Yes, it's out in the world now in the vernacular of mental health, but so many of us are operating just on autopilot in these wounds we don't even realize we're doing. And that's why when we talk about it's so important to recognize, that's where it starts. And so, is there any, for people who are listening, it might be at the very beginning of their journey, like I might need to look into this more. Where is a place they can go, or how can they start in that process besides your book, Anxiously Attached?
Yeah, I mean, my book is great. It has a lot of information in there and to begin how to self-healing. But I would say if you're listening and you're struggling, there are themes in our life that tend to repeat, right? And deep down, we have a core wound, whether it's I'm unlovable, mine was I'm going to get left, right? Or I'm going to be neglected. And when we start to really look at these themes that hold so much energy in them, we can start to say, oh my God, this has happened before, and I possibly recreate similar dynamics so that we have something that's like repetitive somatic patterning. So we can create similar dynamics that are familiar. So we tend to create our familiar hell, they say, but it's really our familiar pain in hopes to heal it. And what happens is we stay unconscious because we're not understanding like where the roots are and what's going on in our current life has deep roots. And so it took someone pointing out to me, hey, this is awakening a very young part of you who was neglected, who was left. And that's actually where the root of the pain is. So yes, things were showing up in my day-to-day life, but I was able to kind of bring it home and start to grieve, essentially, parts of my childhood where I didn't get my needs met. And when you start to really get awakened to what's coming up in the present moment and start to kind of bring it home to the past and start to hold those sensations in a way of like, this is actually my core wounds. This is actually my history. You start to shift the trauma in your body and in your life, and you stop blaming everything in the here and now. And I'm not here to say that what's happening in the here and now isn't toxic or isn't bad, but you start to make deeper sense of it. And once you can start to make deeper sense of it, you're kind of on this journey of healing it at the root. And then you're probably going to orient or move towards something else because you'll have to starting to heal it. And it's a process. I'm not going to lie and sit here and say like healing your core wounds or learning how to navigate this is something that happens in a week or a month. But it really does help you from not repeating the same cycles with different people and getting to the same themes. There's been many times in my life I'm like, oh my God, I'm here again. And I don't feel that way anymore. And I write about it, and it's a lot to reorient. But those are like the tools I would say in terms of like bringing awareness and awakening to parts of yourself so that you can get out of these familiar patterns.
Yeah, I think to that point, it's so important to surround yourself with the support and the care. It was me working with a trauma-informed therapist that actually helped me realize, wow, I've been stuck in this pattern and stuck in kind of an unconsciousness that I wasn't aware of. And it's like turning on the light. And something that you share in all the work that you do is the power of turning on the light through the self-full method. And really, all the work I do is about self-love. We have to come back to self-love. And it sounds like self-love can help pull you through. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah, like I really have an issue with self-love. Because I think that, people can hear that, oh, let me love myself. And if it was that easy, they would just go do it, right? And I think that from an attachment informed like venue, it's really our experience of love and what you said, like pulling in the right support. So like when I tell people or help people move to a place where they have quote unquote self-love, I approach it from a place of when have you experienced love, and have you experienced love, and what has that felt like in your body? Because if you haven't experienced it, it's impossible to have it.
Yeah.
So the first thing is resourcing. I felt it from an aunt. I felt it from my dog. Okay, what does that feel like somatically in your body?
Mm.
And if it's my aunt, for example, or my grandmother, like what would they say to you that was loving? So we can't develop an ego state without resourcing it from some place. And if we haven't experienced enough love, it's very hard to internalize that and just develop self-love.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that you worked with a therapist. I think what became loving for me are people that had the capacity to be present, hold space for me, be attuned. My nervous system started to recognize like this is love. This is what I need to get familiar with. And then, enough loving people around me help me internalize some messages around self-love. But without that, we can't internalize and we can't create self-love out of thin air. So we really do need to work on resourcing those experiences in our life so we can cultivate more from within because it just doesn't appear. And I do struggle with telling people to love themselves. Because like if they could, they would, right? And it's so
Mm-hmm.
I kind of reframe it like, let's go to these loving points in your life. What did it feel like? What did that person's message give to you? Can we resource them at this time? And that's how we start to develop an ego state that kind of resembles those loving resources and cultivate the felt sense of what does it feel like to be around a loving person? And can we keep bringing that in, bringing that in, bringing that in? And I find that's like an approach that kind of is tangible for my clients.
Yeah, and I think that's the key, tangible. We're often outsourcing and looking for it outside, but what happens is that feeling has to start on the inside. So, for example, I saw on your Instagram recently cuddling with your dog, totally related, because I love doing that too. And that's a moment that you can capture of this is love. This is pure joy. And this is what it feels like to be loved and to give love. And the more of those moments that we capture, it's really about tapping into those daily, right? And that's one of the reasons with the book, Happy Bedtime Mantras, and the deck, I'm so excited because it's 365 days of mantras, meditations, and little steps we can take in rituals and in the moment to feel better so we can stress less and sleep better. As we're talking about that, when we think about our relationships, and the reason I wanted to bring you on for the masterclass is because our relationships really are this lens in which we can learn and grow. But more importantly, when we're not feeling safe in a relationship or we're having kind of turmoil or wondering, should we stay, should we go, it does impact every part of our health, especially our sleep. And I'm wondering if you have any tools that you would share to help people kind of navigate how to balance their kind of process, their mental health with their relationships.
Yeah, I mean, to piggyback on kind of what I said before, if you're struggling in your relationship, I think the first question to ask is there a theme here? What does this feel like? And is this familiar? Because if it's familiar, we know it's connected to trauma, and we have a tendency to reenact our trauma. And so, one of two things: one, the relationship might not be right for you, or the relationship is awakening your trauma for you to do your own healing work to determine whether the relationship is right for you or not. And I think often we get stuck in these patterns and we can call the relationship toxic or whatever, but really we're recreating our trauma. And the goal is to become aware and conscious of,
Yes.
oh my God, this is repeating. And how early did this start? And can I be with that part of me? And can I bring that part of me to a professional and start my healing journey? And when you heal that younger part of you that is showing up in your relationship, you might not choose the relationship, or
Mm-hmm.
you might get out of the dynamic, or your partner's actions might not impact you in the same way. They're not hitting your wounds, and you can kind of see them and their wounding and not blame so much. So it's really important information to ask yourself, have I felt this before? Is this my theme? Is there a core wound? And is this my familiar? And that is usually something that I would say you start with feeling in your body.
Mm-hmm.
Where do I feel this in my body? What are the sensations, and how early did I feel this? And that can give you an indication of like what is happening in the here and now might be a repeating kind of core wound for you.
Yeah, I think this is an important questions to ask yourself, whether we journal on them, meditate on them, really think about them. Those are a series of questions we can bring to any area of our life. So I love that. Thank you for sharing that. As you were talking, it really made me think about when you do start to heal. And to this point, it's not about blaming the others. We talk about toxicity, but really one of the biggest shifts for me was not blaming and saying, where are my toxic habits? And it helped me to call it toxic because it was about taking accountability, but it wasn't shame. There was no blame. And I think we have to take out that blame, not blame others and not shame them. And I started to recognize that I was participating in the dynamic, right? Whether it was people pleasing or over giving and betraying myself. And you talk about self betrayal and how we can start to pull back and
Mhm.
regain. And that's, I think, one of the most important steps here, too. So when we start to do that, just to reflect, we might not be attracted to the same things. And I think that's something we can tap into on our healing journey. The question I'm really getting to here is, how do we know we are healing? What are some other kind of signals that you are doing the work?
Yeah, I mean, and that's such a good point because anxious attachment is all about self-abandonment. And so that's exactly like our part is we adapted in a way where we self-abandon in order to stay in connection, which are the things that you are sharing that you've learned, and we play our part. I don't use the word toxic traits. I say adapted because that's literally as an infant how we learned to stay in connection was this form of self-abandonment. And so it's such a compassionate way to say, okay, this isn't healthy, but this is what we automatically know. Um, in my experience in the healing process, which I mean it's different for every single person that, is in it. But if you have a therapist that's holding space for you and you're getting in touch with your sensations and you're moving through more, one, sometimes you feel very vulnerable. It's very hard to keep showing up. But one of the things I noticed is there was more space inside of me. My reactions lessened. I moved towards healthier situations. I became like I could feel the work. You can feel the work when you're in it, and it's super hard when you're in it because you're now sitting with sensations and experiences that you might have avoided your whole life, and you're bringing them to another person to help move them out of your body and integrate it into your brain. But there is a sense of like something shifting, and it feels terrifying because there's a sense of uncertainty and vulnerability again in doing the real work. That's really hard. But if you have good anchors in your life, like I love that you went to a trauma specialist. I talk about anchors in my next book. but anchors people in their nervous system, like in a sense of safety, and you have good anchors, then you can do the work and you can start to face these things. And I absolutely knew I was in it. Some of my clients know they're in it. It's when it's really hard, you know
Yeah.
you're in it, you know,
Mhm.
when it's really hard.
And it can
So
be to that point, it can feel isolating. And there are parts where you're in it, you're living in a way that you haven't lived before. You're expanding past the limitations that it's like a cloud. I also feel like I felt that a cloud was lifted. I started to see things more clearly. I started to not project. And so on that process, to your point, it is terrifying, but it's also exhilarating. It's healing. It's how we become more whole. It's truly that process. So
yeah, I
absolutely
think
beautiful.
definitely very liberating. You have more
Yes.
choices. When you're healed, you're making less unconscious choices. You're able to have less reaction time. And yeah, you're making healthier choices because you're not as impulsive.
Yeah, and that's really what it's about to keep showing up. And this conversation really is about showing up for yourself with more love and more compassion. It's a
Mhm.
journey. And I love how you say, that's not really there that we get to. It's always a process and we keep choosing to be stronger for ourselves and others. So thank you. I want to thank you for being here today. We're going to close out our session and I want to offer a final card. I'm going to pull a card from my deck for you. But as I do, is there any closing remarks you have for people listening?
No, I just love how you said, it's about compassion. I think it's moving out of shame and into compassion, and that takes a lot of work, but reframing these things, knowing you're not alone, and we all struggle with them, right? So
Yeah.
I love that idea of just having more compassion for ourselves and others.
And that's it, right? It is compassion for ourselves and others. And I really want to bring you in because relationships impact every area of our life, especially the relationship with ourselves. And so when we show up for ourselves, we start to, have these processes. So the card I have for you now, it's great. It always ties up where we talked. So this is the Eye of Horus, and the card deck, I wanted to have it be like a dream state. So you have the moons in the graphic design, but the actual mantra is I cannot see what I ignore. And
Hmm.
that really sums up where we were today about just allowing yourself to go into what you maybe have been unconscious to, but just be there with compassion and love. And Jessica and I are sending you lots of love on your journeys. And thanks, Jessica, for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me. It was so much fun.
Mhm.